Welcome to the Chase Smith Podcast, a conversation on current events and culture. Danny Cunningham is with me. First time on the Chase Smith Pod. Previously, he was with me on the break. He's on the beat and covers the Cavs at the Inside Shot on Substack. He hosts his own Cavs pod for the Locked On Network. He's on 92.3 The Fan. He's associate editor at Cleveland Magazine. Danny, thanks for coming on and talking Cavs with me again, man.
You got it, man. What's up? How are you?
Good. We talked, I want to say, kind of like the first quarter, third of the season. And, I don't think much has changed, Danny, aside from the Cavs roster. It was before the trade deadline. Probably one of the most convincing round one sweeps I remember in all of my years watching basketball. Is that an over-exaggeration? I just told you before we recorded, I'm going to try not to be such a pod bro about the Cavs, but we've got to be feeling good, man. Is that one of the most dominant series wins you've ever seen?
I mean, I think so. Like the fact that they outscored Miami by 122 points in 4 games. They go to Miami, which historically for the Cavs, just like as a franchise, is a place where they don't find success. For whatever reason, Miami is a really, really difficult place to play for the Cavs, no matter what the roster looks like, whether they're really good the way they are right now, whether they're really bad the way they've been at times in the franchise's history, whether they have LeBron James, whether they don't have LeBron James, they've struggled as a franchise to win in Miami. So for them to go there, and there are a ton of stats floating around from this series, but my favorite one was the Cavs were trailing, excuse me. So Miami led game 3, 15-6, roughly 3.5 minutes in to game 3. Mm-hmm. And in the final 90 minutes and 34 seconds, the Cavs outscored the Heat by 101 points. It's so absurd to have that type of dominance. And listen, I get it. The Heat finished 10th. They were a play-in team. They really were not good enough to be a postseason team, although there are some advanced metrics that tell you they probably were. They were a better team for the full season than Chicago, than Atlanta. You could even make the case for Orlando, that they were better. Like they had a positive point differential, which the other teams in the play-in did not. So you could make that case. But in a playoff series, to outscore a playoff team by 101 points in 91 minutes is absurd. I'm not sure that the Washington Wizards would have done worse than that. And the Wizards obviously finished with the second worst record in basketball. Right. It was just astonishing to watch in person in Miami. I was, knowing what we know about who the Heat are as a franchise and how they operate, I was not expecting them to just lie down the way that they did. And they let go of the rope probably in the second quarter of game 3, and they just never got it back, man.
Well, I would say, Danny, yes, at home especially, but even in the second game, the Cavs were up by like 20 plus points, and the Heat kind of had kind of like a little run in the third quarter. They came back. I texted my best friend. I said, this feels like a regular season game so many times throughout the course of the series. And it really made me appreciate that we don't have to go through the Orlando gauntlet and have our bigs get stitches or our star player get roughed up, or to go through the gruelingness of a Detroit or a New York series. Really kind of shows the benefit of that number 1 seed. Danny, you were in Miami. It did not look close at all. Were there things that you saw in person that didn't translate to watching the game, or was pretty much what you see is what you got, like what you saw?
So I think, I've not gone back and watched the TV copies of the game just because had it been a close game, I would have, but right. Because it was such a blow, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to gain anything by watching the Cavs beat the Heat by 55 points on TV as opposed to in person. I maybe the thing I will say is how the Cavs took Tyler Hero out of that game. I'm not sure translated to the television, because what the Cavs were able to do in games 3 and 4 was they did something called they top locked him, which essentially was typically when you are teaching tenets of defense, like a principle is always you want to be between your man and the basket. right? Well, top blocking kind of forgets that. Like you want to be between your man and the ball, not the basket. So sometimes your man is going to be closer to the basket than you are, but you are going to be in between them and the ball. So that is the philosophy that the Cavs really employed against Tyler Hero. And what that led to at some points was Max Strus, who I thought did the best job of this in that series. Max Strus and Tyler Hero standing in the corner having a staring contest while the other four guys on each team played basketball. And that to me was one, a really smart adjustment by the Cavs, by Kenny Atkinson and the rest of his staff, but it allowed the Cavs to play 4-on-4 against Miami. And when the Cavs are playing 4-on-4, typically you would say, well, that just means the other team has more room to operate. Like that becomes a difficult thing to do. And you'd be right in that. But the other thing that doesn't account for is when the Cavs are playing 4-on-4, and one of those four guys for the Cavs is their best defender in Evan Mobley, and one of the four guys not playing for the Heat is their best offensive player in Tyler Hero. Like that is just such a smart thing if you can pull it off. And I don't know how well that translated to everybody watching at home. But in the arena, it's like, man, Tyler Hero can't do anything. Like he can't move without Max Strus basically being inside his jersey.
Yeah. Yeah. Very quiet Tyler Hero. You heard more of him when he wasn't playing basketball in a series,
Yeah.
is I think a recipe for a success if you're looking to win any type of thing against Tyler Hero. Uh, Danny, is Heat? Did we kill the Heat? Are the Heat done?
I think heat culture is dead. I do. Like because we've heard so much about it, right, Chase? I mean, you know this. We've heard, and they have benefited a lot, narratively, from the fact that they were an 8 seed, made the finals off of it, and the fact that they have perennially, I think, overachieved. This team didn't overachieve for Miami. Obviously, they had some stuff go on with Jimmy Butler and whatnot. Like that's a
Yeah.
difficult place to be as an organization, and they had to deal with that. And I think that you did see some of the effects of that down the stretch of the season. But I think that I don't think that you can talk about heat culture in, what did the court say that they had that everybody made fun of, right? Remember the heat culture floor they played on? It said hardest working, best in shape, meanest, nastiest, most physical team in the NBA. That didn't describe them. If you have the culture that franchise has propped up for the past several years,
Mhm.
if that is who you are organizationally, you do not trail an elimination game at home by 60 points. Are the Cavs way more talented than Miami? Absolutely. Not close. Kenny Atkinson has far better tools in his tool belt as a coach than what Eric Spoelstra has right now because his roster is just so much better than what the Heat have. But I don't care about that. Should the Heat have won a game in this series? Probably not. Like the Cavs are that much more talented than them. But they should not. If you have the culture that they talk about and they
Yeah.
brag about and they are known for, you should not lose a series by 122 points in 4 games. You should not lose a series by 92 points in your 2 home games. Ever. Ever. So for me, that the Cavs went to Miami and they beat the culture out of the Heat in 2 games.
I think this is a fascinating case study going into round two because I think a part of that Heat culture, Danny, is the benefit of the doubt because of consistency with Coach Spoelstra, who's one of the best coaches in the league, and probably because of Coach Spoelstra, they are a 10 seed and they did make it to the NBA playoffs, right? But how important it is to pair great coaching with an all-star caliber, blue chip, all NBA, whatever word you want to use, player on your team that he just didn't have. The Heat did not have. There it was a glaring weakness. There was a glaring omission that they did not have a playmaker on, like, to do anything, to take over and say, hey, we need a bucket, we need to stop this, whatever, we're gonna get to the free throw line. They did not have that player for whatever reason. And so I think as long as Spo is there, they're going to try. But I think the heartbeat of that Heat culture is just, it's flatline, man. Like it is not there.
So one of the conversations that I had throughout the series with a couple of different players in the locker room, just kind of asking, doing my reporting about what adjustments the Heat can make. And there were different things suggested to me about, if so and so was in Eric Spoelstra's shoes, here's what they would do. And, Miami tried some of that stuff and it didn't work. And I would go back to the people that I was talking with and say, you know what, man, I just don't think like they don't have the adjustments. It's not an adjustments thing.
Mhm.
It's they're not good enough. They don't have the players that you
Yeah.
guys have. And that's kind of the biggest difference. Like
Mhm.
Eric Spoelstra tried different things. He changed his starting lineup. They tried different offensive strategies. They tried different defensive strategies. None of it mattered because one, the Cavs were the much more focused team
Yeah.
throughout this series. And also, top to bottom, and I know what we're going to get to with the exercise we're going to do for the Pacers series, but if you were to do that for the Heat series, and it's, I think, a much easier thing to do retrospectively as opposed to before the series,
Mhm.
but before you get to like the third member of the Heat that you're going to draft, how many guys on the Cavs would you draft? Like that's just, I think, is it six? Is
See, I
it
was thinking
seven?
like 7, 8. It'd be. I
And,
mean,
and that just speaks to where the Heat's roster is. And if
well, and
you're Eric
even
Spoelstra, you can't do anything about that.
yeah, and even with the player like a probably Bam, you're still looking for points and an offensive threat. Like I don't. You're not operating an offense around Bam. Like you're not running through anything through him. And
Well,
so
you saw what happened when they tried to do that in game three. Like he had
yeah,
24 points because he had four threes. He had six turnovers. Like
yeah.
Evan Mobley had him in jail. It was just the fact that he hit a couple of threes at the end of the shot clock that made his box score look better than it did. But
Oh
I
man.
was sitting in media row talking to some of the other writers. It's like, man, I don't know. Bam is having Bam is having a terrible game. What Evan Mobley did to him was
Yeah.
incredible.
It looks like a future Laker, but I know this isn't that kind of play. um, all right. So super fun to be a fan in this round one series. And the Cavs showed why they were the best team in the NBA. Well, some would argue, but how they led the East, best record in the NBA most all of the season, and they completely worked the Heat. Round two, the Pacers. Danny, are you concerned that the Cavs weren't tested enough heading into round two? I'm so glad you mentioned they looked focused because it did not seem that they took care of business and winning two games in Miami. Um, I think just shows a different level of like, hey, it's clock in, clock out. We're here to do work, and it doesn't matter what it is. We're here to do some stuff. Are you concerned they weren't tested enough?
I'm not because the way that I look at it is the Cavs were testing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they spoke before that series, and that series is a little weird because you find out 48 hours before game one begins who you're playing. So the week leading up to it, where they have all these practices, they get this time on the court, but they can't really dive super deep into a game plan because they don't know the opponent. So what the team does, and I'm sure OKC did this too, is the one seed on the other side who similarly found out who their opponent was really for them like 36 hours before game one started. But you make it about yourself and you say, this week is about us. It is kind of an us versus us thing where it's on us to perform. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. And when you're in the one seed, you win 64 games, you play a team that won 37. Like that's kind of how it should be. So the thing that I look for, not necessarily for the Cavs to be tested. And if I'm being honest, I did expect Miami to be a much better test than they were.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the Cavs were as focused as they were and as locked in as they were in that series kind of eliminates the need for me to sit here and say, yeah, I'd feel better if they would have played somebody better in the first round. Like, no, I think that for the Cavs, at least until they get to Boston and or OKC in the finals, if the Cavs just play like the Cavs, there's not another team outside of those two that I mentioned
Yep.
that can beat them. Like
Yeah.
they are on the top tier of teams in the NBA.
Yep.
Them, OKC, and Boston. And then, Chase, I think I think it's probably silly to rank like one, two, three, four in terms of teams. I think tiering it is a
Yeah.
little smarter. The second tier of team is probably empty. Like it's
Mhm.
probably the Cavs, Boston, and OKC, and then a tier of teams that there are no teams in. And then are the Pacers the best of the next bunch? Maybe, but they're like kind of tier three for me. So if the Cavs just are the Cavs, if they display that level of focus, I thought it was a championship caliber focus they had in that series. If they do that, there's not a team outside of their tier that can beat them. So because they displayed that in a situation where it could have been easy for them to overlook Miami, for them to let the city of Miami get the best of them, because we've seen that happen to teams before.
Mhm.
But because they didn't allow that to happen, I just don't think that you should be concerned that they didn't face a good enough team in the first round.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We didn't see anything new from the Cavs against the Heat. This is how they've always played. This is the same team that we've watched for what is it, 82 games? Like this is the Cavaliers. They played ethical Cavalier basketball, and there was nothing new. And it's sustainable. It's able to be replicated, and I. It is so hard not to be overly confident going into round two, Danny. It truly is. Um, we do play the Indiana Pacers. What is the one thing the Cavs are going to have to game plan around this series? You mentioned Tyler Hero did the top block. What is the one focus you see this team looking into this series round two?
They need to limit how well Tyrese Halliburton can get his teammates involved. So he is obviously one of the best passers in basketball. He's one of the lead assist guys in the NBA. And this year, he had, I believe it was 35 games or 34 games that he played where he had 10 assists or more. And he had 40 games where he had 9 assists or fewer. They were 20 and 20 in the 40 games in which he had 9 assists or fewer. So for the Cavs, if Tyrese Halliburton's going to score and that's how the Pacers are going to go, the
Mhm.
Cavs are going to have to live with that. But what the Cavs are going to have to do is limit what Pascal Siakam can do off of Tyrese Halliburton, what Miles Turner can do, what Andrew Nemhard, Aaron Nesmith, Obi Toppin, what those guys can do off of Tyrese Halliburton's offensive creation. I think that is a big deal. And, when I look at when the Cavs have struggled at times this year, it's even in games they've won. I've noticed them struggle when they fail to dictate the speed at which the game is played.
Yes.
There is a game early in the season. If you remember the night they played the Warriors at home, and they were leading the Warriors by 41 points at halftime.
Mhm.
And then the very next night, the Brooklyn Nets came into town and nearly beat the Cavs. They
Yep.
almost handed the Cavs the first loss of the season.
Mhm.
And the Nets gave them problems because the Nets wanted to play at snail's pace. And the Cavs allowed the Nets to control the pace of that game. And on the second night of a back to back, I think it's a little bit easier to have your guard down like that. So that won't be an issue in the playoffs. But the Pacers like to play very fast. And the Cavs like to play fast as well, not as fast as the Pacers, but they need to make sure that Indiana plays their style of basketball game and they are not playing Indiana's style of basketball game. If they do those two things, if they force Tyrese Halliburton to be more of a scorer than a playmaker for others and control the pace at which these games are played, they will have very little to worry about in this series.
Yep. I I agree. I limiting Halliburton, limiting second chance points. I mean, it's almost like the same kind of like chalkboard points with every team. But if you limit those like second chance points, close out, limit Halliburton and team involvement, I think you're really going to set yourself up. I if we were to flip that for the Pacers, like it's all Mobley's development has really been a problem for other teams because it's almost like a pick your poison. Um, and one of the you mentioned like one of the things that I'd love to do with you is rank the top 10 players in this series. Because aside from Boston and OKC, I don't see any other team that is as deep or like as like truly talented as the Cavs. Okay, you limit Halliburton, so all right, Siakam, go ahead, beat us. Like right, like we'll live with that. Like Miles Turner, can you win a playoff game, Miles Turner? I don't know. I just don't see if you do game plan for Spider. Okay, Mobley can beat you and will, or Garland can like. There's just so many options that I see the Cavs have, and gosh, I mean, at the end of our discussion here, I want to share our predictions, but gosh, Danny, I would have let him know, man.
So one of the things, and I'm glad you bring up the depth, because one of the things that I've been talking about on my podcast this week And I'll talk about it more because I've recorded episodes going into the weekend that I know I discussed this on. But think about like 10 years ago when LeBron was in Cleveland, and so much of what mattered in the postseason was, well, who has the best player,
Mhm.
right? Like you could almost predict a series in 2014, 2015, 2016, that era of basketball in the NBA. If you just look at the rosters and say, that team has the best player in this series. Like the Cavs won the 2016 finals for a lot of different reasons. But the biggest reason they won that finals was LeBron James led the entire series in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. There is not a single metric in that series in which he was not the best player.
Mhm.
Now, I think we've gotten to the point, or are gradually moving towards closer to this point, where there's so much top end talent in the NBA that having the best player doesn't matter as much as it used to. Where now I think we are getting to the point, I think this will be a really good exercise with that draft we're going to do. We are getting to the point now where, okay, who is the worst player in your rotation and where would he rank in the other team's rotation?
Mhm.
Like, for instance, I think that Milwaukee is a great example of this, and they are obviously eliminated now. And the Damian Lillard injury sucks and it's awful. But if you look at that Bucks roster, and this is why they lost to the Pacers, because who was the best player in that series? It was Giannis Antetokounmpo
Yep.
by a country mile,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
how many players on the Bucks right now would be in the rotation for the Cavs? Giannis would, no question about it. Damian Lillard's hurt, so he doesn't count.
Yep.
After that, how long is it if you were drafting those two teams? How long would it be before you got to the next member of the Bucks? And I think we've gotten to that point in the NBA where depth is starting to matter so much because all of these teams have great top end talent. Tyrese Halliburton's amazing. Pascal Siakam is a great player. Donovan Mitchell's incredible. Evan Mobley is fantastic. Darius Garland, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Jalen Brunson, Carl Anthony Towns. Like all these guys are superstars in the four teams left in the Eastern Conference. But I look at it as okay, who's the eighth guy for the Knicks? It's
Mhm.
Miles McBride. Would Miles McBride play for the Cavs? No, he would not be in the rotation. Who's the eighth guy for the Pacers? Ben Shepherd? Is Ben Shepherd playing for the Cavs? TJ McConnell, is he getting minutes on the floor for the Cavs? Probably not.
Not
And I
over Ty
think that
Jerome.
not over Ty Jerome. And I think that that stuff matters
Mhm.
so much more than it has in recent history. And I think Chase, I think it's making me personally, and I think that this should be maybe a bigger discussion point than it is, but it won't be because of the way we talk about basketball in this day and age. But I think depth matters so much more than it did 10 years ago. And I think that the Cavs are a great example of that. And I think OKC is a great example of that too.
Mhm. We saw this on display this week, and the Lakers starting five didn't come out of the game in the second half of game three, right? Like, for whatever reason, JJ Redick didn't go to his bench. Uh, we continually saw as the Cavs were steamrolling the, the East and the NBA Kenny was toying with lineups. He was, I mean, this is the least amount of minutes Donovan Mitchell has, I think, ever played in his career. Um, and and that pays dividends. All of a sudden, players like Sam Merrill have confidence to start an away playoff game, right? Um, that those minutes matter, and that confidence matters. What they do in the regular season matters. It matters for them. It matters for other players to trust and believe them, for them to come through as they do. It is so encouraging, and like, yes, that's our coach. This is our team. When you see what they did in the regular season continue in the playoffs, to see Sam Merrill play strong physical defense, not give up a drive in the lane. Yes, because we saw him really work hard on that in the regular season. Yes, we've seen Ty Jerome hit these floaters, hit these threes, get that steal, keep a second unit, grow a lead. One of the things you mentioned, like the bronze team, I remember thinking, oh man, if we how much will our lead shrink when LeBron's off the court with the second unit, right? That doesn't happen with this Cavs team. Like they either get us back, start a run, or at the very least, it's a wash. Um, I think. I mean, I had to pull up this Milwaukee team. I don't. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. My, you know what I mean. All of a sudden, we're back with Kevin Porter Jr. But I think you're right. I don't think many other players would crack our 8-9 player lineup. And I think that that is huge going. The further we get into the playoffs, the more that's only going to matter. And I don't think Kenny's going to change that when we get to the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals. He's going to keep doing what we've always done because they've it's worked. They pulled through.
Right. I don't know. I will say I don't know if they can play 10 guys consistently when you get to the conference finals against Boston. I think that he's going to start this series by playing 10 guys. Now we get to a potential like game 6, should we expect to see 10 guys play for the Cavs? I don't know. Typically as the series grows longer, the rotation grows shorter, but I do think that that is one of his philosophies. That's part of the reason why the Cavs are who the Cavs are, is because of that depth and how good they are, not just 1 through 5, but 1 through 10. And I think that that just matters so much. And OKC is great at this. Like they have so many guys that you can just look at and say, how many teams would that guy start for? And I think that's a fun, interesting conversation to have about the Cavs. Like right now, Isaac Okoro is the 10th guy for the Cavs. How many teams, how many playoff teams in the NBA could he start for? Because it's around half of them. I
Yeah,
think almost all of them he would be in the rotation. And
that's
that
true.
just in he's 10th in the rotation right now for the Cavs. Like that just I think that speaks so much to how well this roster has been built by Kobe Altman and how
Yeah.
great of a job that Kenny Atkinson has done coaching it through this season.
And I think another thing it provides is flexibility in how they defend lineups and flexibility in the type of they want to go big, they want to go small, they want to like because these players have meaningful minutes and rotational experience, it allows us flexibility in whether it's foul trouble or an injury or to adjust to the other team's style. It's just great. Danny, let's have some fun here, man. I want to rank the top 10 players in this Cavs Pacers series, uh, just to kind of go along with this conversation. I want to do this together. I don't want to have our lists separate. I want to try to find common ground here, for just for no one's sake, but just what we think. Um, I'll say this: I have the Cavs for the top 5 players.
Okay, so I have 4 of the top 6 as Cavs.
I
I'm
love
willing
that.
to bet that we probably both have 3 of the top 4 as Cavs.
Yes.
And then we probably have your number 6 is probably not my number 5, and my number 5 is probably your number 6.
Yeah.
I went Donovan Mitchell number 1.
Bingo.
I just think that like he is the truest superstar in this series.
Hmm.
What he's done, he doesn't get enough credit. I could say that until I'm blue in the face. I've said that a ton this year. People are probably sick and tired of me saying that, but it will be true. I would be surprised if he's not finishing 5th in the MVP voting. I would be surprised if he's not first team All NBA this year. He
Agreed.
deserves all of the credit he gets, and then even more after that. And I think that he obviously didn't need to do a ton in games 3 and 4 in Miami, but I think game 2 at home against the Heat was a really good reminder of what he's capable of.
Yep. At number 2, I'm sure we have the same player, the defensive player of the year in the NBA, Evan Mobley, coming in at number 2, baby.
We
Danny,
did.
chance uh, Mitchell's going to have one next year, maybe, right? In the Cavs? Like, or how close are we for this being a flip flop for the Cavs here?
Oh, that is a great question. Um, I think that there's still, I think Evan Mobley has a very high ceiling. And obviously, one day, like, I think when we look at this at the end, I think Evan Mobley's potential as a basketball player is greater than Donovan Mitchell's potential as a basketball player. And I think the world of Donovan Mitchell, I think he's a future Hall of Famer.
Mhm.
I think he's a true superstar. But I think Evan Mobley can be like a top 25-ish player to ever play the game. and I don't know that Donovan Mitchell can do that.
I
Um, I would say we're probably 2 years away
mhm.
because I also don't think Donovan's done getting better either. And I
Gosh, he's
think
so
that
good. He's so good this year.
probably gets lost a little bit.
So good this year. I don't think there's an argument this year. I think next year it's going to be like a little intriguing, and I think there could be a legitimate case maybe in 2 years. But I think you're right. I think 2 years away from like an honest conversation. But it's just yeah. Number three. Who you got for number three, Danny? Third
I
best
went
player in this
Tyrese
Cavs Pacers
Halliburton here.
series. Okay.
I went Tyrese Halliburton here. I think that he is really, really good. The fact that he's done it in the playoffs before, taking the Pacers to the conference finals.
Mhm.
He's obviously had a really good year this year. What he did against Milwaukee was super impressive in the first round. And I think that he and Darius Garland are in sort of the same tier of player for me after this season. But because Garland is dealing with a bit of a toe injury right now, and I just don't know that
Mhm.
one, if he's going to be able to play, I would imagine he is able to play on Sunday. But two, also, if he does play, he might be a little bit hampered by that.
Mhm.
So I went Halliburton here. What about
Yep.
you?
I had Garland at three and Halliburton at four. Um, one, I think we've seen this the ceiling of Halliburton. I don't think he can do anything else or get much better. I still think I've seen Garland improve. I would rather have the ball in Garland's hands in crunch time than I trust Garland to create his own shot and to make the shot more than I trust Halliburton to do that. Um, and so I've been really, really hard on Garland. I was really hard on him last year, and I've done my best to give him his flowers this year because he is playing the best basketball I've ever seen him play. And he's a big reason why we, the Cavs, have dominated this year. He's been phenomenal in crunch time. And because I'm a homer and because this is a Cavs centric pod, I went ahead. I think if I'm being objective, um, Halliburton has the resume for the third best player and probably I think it's up for grabs in this series. I think if I mean, what was he voted the most overrated player? Halliburton. I don't know how serious that was.
Yeah,
Maybe that was
I
a
don't
Centel tweet. I don't
necessarily
even
buy into
remember.
that. No, no, that was a real thing in the
Okay.
Athletic and guys on the Cavs, primarily Donovan Mitchell and Kenny Atkinson were asked about this on Thursday at practice. And they both said they disagreed with it. I
Yeah.
certainly disagree with it. I think he impacts winning at a very high level. His jump shot looks pretty funky. I'll give you that, but I think he's a really good player. I think he impacts winning. The fact that he takes care of the basketball so well. I will say the thing that Garland has over him is I just think I do agree with you about creating his own shot. And like if you need a guy to go get you 35, you've got a much better chance of finding that success with Garland as opposed to with Halliburton.
Mhm. Yeah. And so I have Garland at three and Halliburton at four. I think, I mean, this is your job. So I think you have to quiet the fan, the homer a little bit. So I think you're probably correct. But Danny, I think there's a legitimate, like, that is up for grabs in this series. If there's a no show for Halliburton and the Cavs and Garland and company continue to do their thing, I that's not going to be a good for Halliburton. um,
Yes, I absolutely agree.
but okay, so that's three, four, five. I have Jared Allen. I don't know.
So I went Pascal Siakam
Mhm.
5 and I went Jared Allen 6.
Yep.
Siakam has performed in the playoffs before. Obviously, he is an NBA
Mhm.
champion. And I just think that his impact is a little bit easier to see considering that he has a heavier lift. And I think that you do have to consider that. Like Jared Allen is awesome and he's had a great year. He
Yeah.
had a great series against Miami.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a little bit easier for him to do what he does, considering that he's the fourth guy. And sometimes he's the fifth guy on the Cavs. And Pascal Siakam is never that and still produces really, really well. So that's kind of why I
Yeah.
went him there.
I loved when the Pacers got him last year. I feel like um, he fits what they're doing. I think he's stunted Matherin and a couple of their other projects they had a little bit. Um, but I don't, because he's a champion and he's performed, you just don't know if those players you're developing are ever going to get to a Siakam even level. Um, I still think the Pacers are a Donovan Mitchell type player away from making any noise. I think this is who they are. But I have Siakam at 6. I'd have Jared Allen at 5. Again, you're probably more correct. But we're the Cavs are the best team, and we're the best
Yeah,
team for a
it's
reason.
true.
And he did. I mean, it was so encouraging because I feel like last year, um, he struggled against the Knicks 2 years ago. Last year you want to see the double double machine that Jared Allen of the regular season. You just wanted more of him the past couple years. It was nice to see him against the Heat really produce and impact the game at a high level, which he can. So I have Allen at 5, maybe recency bias, but I have Siakam. Flip there. I do have Miles Turner at 7.
Okay, so I actually went DeAndre Hunter at 7.
Okay.
Um, I think the versatility he provides on the wing is really, really impressive. The fact that he can create his own shot, the fact that he's as good of a shooter as he is, what he can do defensively, I think all that is really impressive. And I just think that's a little bit more valuable than what Turner does. Like Turner's a nice stretch 5.
Yeah.
But this kind of gets back to my original point before this conversation. Miles Turner's a good player. Would Miles Turner play on the Cavs? Like, how many minutes would Miles Turner get if he were on the Cavs instead of on the Pacers?
I don't know if I want to answer. I
Like, the Cavs are a worse team, I think, if they have Miles Turner instead of Jared Allen.
I don't know,
They are a
Danny.
worse team. They are a worse team if they have Miles Turner instead of Evan Mobley. Miles Turner's a good player.
Oh,
But I
that's a
think that
fact.
this kind of gets to this larger point of the depth aspect and what the Cavs have. So I went DeAndre Hunter there because of what he can do on the wing, and I just think having production like that on the wing is a little bit more valuable than I think what Turner does. But
I
I did go Turner next. I went Turner at 8, right behind Hunter.
I uh I had Struce at 8. Um,
Okay,
and then Jerome and Hunter
so
for 9 and 10.
I had Jerome and Struce 9 and
Okay.
10, because of what Ty has brought to this team, the scoring punch, the uniqueness of his game
Mhm.
in the backcourt, which I think is a really cool thing. Like the Cavs have 3 really good guards. Obviously, 2 of them are all-star, all NBA caliber guards, and Ty Jerome is not at that level, but they all play 3 very different styles of basketball. I think
Mhm.
that's a big benefit to the Cavs. And I do think that there are not many teams, if any teams, that have their third guard as good as Ty Jerome. And then I
Yeah.
think that Max Strus is perfect for the situation in Cleveland. Like I
Yes.
like that he's in the starting lineup right now because of
Mhm.
all the things that he does to tie what the Cavs do together. Like
Yes.
he's
I agree.
the 7th Cav that I've named, but I
Mhm.
think it's good that he's in the starting 5 as opposed to the 2 Cavs coming off the bench that I named ahead of him. Those
Yes.
guys are, in a vacuum, are better basketball players than Max Strus is, but Max Strus' stylistic fit with the Cavs just makes more sense
Yeah.
alongside the core 4.
Defense. They all Jerome and Hunter play great defense, but I think what Struce is able to do on the perimeter, I mean, Hunter does as well. But yes, you nailed it. Struce's perfect position for us. And, again, how the roster is constructed, how we play, everyone is so complementary to each other. It truly is ethical, such a team like way that they play. Oh gosh, Danny. I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good.
It's easy to feel good.
All right, here we go. I got Cavs in 4. I'm going again, man. I got
Wow, Cavs in 4. I went Cavs in 5.
yes.
I think that the Pacers are a much better team than the Miami Heat, obviously.
Hmm.
I don't, if you're, listening to this podcast at this point, I think you probably have that understanding. I think Tyrese Halliburton's really good. I think they'll have a 1 or 2 good games. I think this is closer to Cavs in 6 than Cavs in 4, but hey, if the
Yeah.
Cavs play the same way they did in games 3 and 4 in
Yeah.
Miami, there's not a team in basketball that can beat them.
Yeah, Danny, I'll keep all your heart secrets here that Cavs in four, that Allen's better. I'll keep all those secrets of your heart here. I just your brain's really smart, and it's good that you go with your brain and not your heart. But I'll keep those secrets here. I know you didn't say that, but I know in your heart you're hoping Cavs in four. I mean, it's super close series too. It's like just like 3 hours away. So was it 3 or 4 from Cleveland? It's not very
Like
far.
4.5 is what
Okay.
my Apple Maps tell me because this
Yeah.
is a series that is going to be a lot of driving back and forth, and unfortunately, no time for me spent in lovely airline lounges.
Yeah, the field house is great. It's a great place to play against the Pacers there. It's a lot of fun. I've been a handful of games there. Well, Danny, thank you so much for coming on the pod. Hey, we went it was close, an entire episode. We didn't mention LeBron or Luca. I know we mentioned the
Who?
Lakers and JJ, right? Yeah. Yeah. We did it. Good job by us. That does it for this episode of the Chase Smith podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Danny, thanks for coming on and talking Cavs round one and round two. Plug a couple things, Danny. Tell me what I can put in the show notes. Love to get some of the stuff out there.
So you can find my podcast every day wherever you get your podcast. It's called Locked On Cavs, Apple, Spotify, YouTube as well.
Mhm.
I also write about the team just about every day over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. You can find that on any of my social media platforms. You can find me on Twitter at Real D Cunningham or on Blue Sky at Danny Cunningham.
Lovely. I'll put those links in the show notes. Danny, thank you so much. Enjoy round two. And I always love talking ball. Thanks again, man.
You got it, man. Anytime.